It's after the try time, and for once in my entire after the try life, I think I'm not wearing a hat.
Oh.
Isn't that a little fun fact?
I fear I'm wearing the same thing as last week, but I have washed it.
I wear the same thing pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, activewear and a shirt.
Activewear, loose t-shirt, hat, no makeup, just utter garbaggio.
For two people who are hoarders and who have wardrobes that are packed to the absolute brim, we tend to wear the same thing time after time after time. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about today.
No.
We are talking about our journey with Tanisha, who was our simulated baby for...
Devil child.
Yeah, actual devil child for the weekend. Wow. What an experience.
I'm still traumatized. I'm still catching up on sleep from that event. Look, I think it is a wonderful experiment for people thinking about being parents or...
Contraception.
Yeah, or giving it to someone who don't want to have a baby, actually.
The amount of people that we heard from when we said that we were going to be doing this on our Instagram that said they had either experienced one or their kids have, and they have since decided not to have children literally because of that was mind-blowing. And to be honest, I can understand why. That was so tiring and horrific, but I will say, in speaking to our mum and in speaking to a couple of people after, they're like, that isn't the reality of an actual baby, because you get none of the joy moments. You're just looking after this plastic thing that all it does is cry, and you experience the crap things of a baby. You don't get the cuddles and the little personality and the laugh and the giggling and the joy and the...
Essentially, it was just a lump that went off every 20 minutes.
Because think about, if you had your own baby and in the middle of the night, the baby's crying, yes, that would be horrific. But imagine then like picking it up and giving it cuddles and it looking up at you and it giggling and like that would be amazing.
Yeah, we had no connection with it. But I think what it just did show is that your life is completely dictated by another thing. And also I think what it did hone in on is that with children, you sometimes don't know what they want because they find it hard, especially before they're speaking, to express what they need. And Tanisha was just that in a...
Well, she would cry.
In a doll form.
And it would give you the cries were the same regardless of what she needed. So it was either burping, rocking, changing the nappy or feeding. And you just didn't know. So you would try all of them before you ticked off what it actually was and before something worked. So that is the reality of motherhood. You don't know what they need because the child, I know you
said... If they shit themselves, you can see there's a shit in the nappy.
Fine.
With Tanisha, she didn't actually physically shit. You might feed her for 45 minutes and then she shuts up for 20 minutes and then 20 minutes later, she's crying again and you're feeding her and that's what she wants. And you're like, is that how real babies work where they need a 45-minute bottle every single 20 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, and there was just no pattern to it. It was just cool.
Look, and I was like, why are we giving year 11s this? Because that was some hectic stuff. We ended up co-parenting. We were going to get a second baby, but it wasn't working. Praise the Lord.
Oh, my Lord.
And I just thought, this is too hard. And this doesn't... I'm all about education in schools. I think we need to increase it, not just have sex ed where you're taught have sex and you'll get pregnant. But I'm also not sure these babies are the answer. What those babies will do will ensure that children never get pregnant because it was so horrific, and who would want that experience?
It's going to ensure that they don't get pregnant for the foreseeable future when they have it, which is a good thing because I feel like getting pregnant when you're 16 is probably not the ideal time.
It just...
Each to their own. If you're pregnant at 16, like that's totally fine. But I'm just saying, ideally, that's probably a little bit too young to have a baby.
But it's not teaching, like I've argued the whole time, the reality of any of this. Yeah. That is not a real baby.
But then I guess it serves its purpose in the sense of just being able to, I guess, understand a little touch of what it's like to be a mum, because otherwise teaching fertility and about miscarriage and loss and all of that, you can only really teach by verbal.
Yeah, well, there needs to be all of that.
Well, yeah, I agree.
I think, maybe this is exactly what those baby makers want. As in the baby doll makers want, because it is just so extreme that they just want to scare kids. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah.
So maybe they're just made for kids, to scare kids, because that did not serve any purpose to us, and it scared the bejesus out of me.
It actually made it so much worse. Like, I already didn't really want kids at the moment anyway, and that made me go so far down not wanting kids even more because there was just not there wasn't a single bit of joy about it.
No.
Or even fun. Like, I know for the first 5 minutes when we did the demo, sorry, not 5 minutes, the first 5 seconds when we did the demo, we were like, oh, lol.
Yeah, we thought it was quite funny. There was this demo stage while you're setting her up and she goes from 0 to 100 with the crying, the screaming, like murderous screaming. And we're like, lol, surely this is, maybe they test you with this once. And we had it on medium.
I know. You could go hard. I don't know what that...
Easy, medium, hard. And so we were like, this is hilarious. But it wasn't so funny when that was happening every 20 minutes.
But I tell you what it did teach us is a whole lot of empathy. Because during that 2 days, you had to be on 24/7. And so when people talk about they couldn't shower, they couldn't go to the bathroom, they couldn't get dressed, they couldn't just go down and get a coffee, they couldn't write back to a text message. I always used to be like, oh, give me a spell. Like, you don't have 2 seconds to do that. Your baby's sleeping, just quickly do it. You actually have to be on guard and have your energy and your attention levels up 24/7 waiting, and you're just on standby waiting for this baby to start crying.
So you can't, that's another thing I think is like real life is when you're sleeping with Tanisha, you aren't in a full deep sleep because you're just listening to her breathe and you're waiting for her to cry. And I think that's what mothers have for the first however many years of a child's life, that they're never properly asleep. They are ready to pounce when their child needs them. So it was that factor. But also, you can't... Also with Tanisha, she had sensors in her neck and everywhere. So it also taught you, like with a real baby, you can't just grab it and chuck it, obviously. But you just have to be so careful with everything you do with this child, like a normal baby.
Because that is true. If you knock a baby or you don't, they have to support their heads. That's one of the biggest things you taught with a newborn. They do start crying or whinging or whatever. So you do have to be careful with that. Wow, there's definitely aspects of it that were realistic. But yeah, the empathy for me was just the biggest thing that I learned, because I felt like there was things that I was very judgmental about before, and it's taught me now I'm not judgmental at all. I'm just empathetic, especially when you think about like going to the supermarket, going on an aeroplane, and if you're by yourself and there's nothing you can do about it, if they just cry and you don't know what they want.
Because I like
hard
aeroplanes, big one where I'm like, can't you just shut your
I know.
Surely there's something you can do. Give it the boot.
Why is it so misbehaved?
Give it but that is, I mean, because we're intelligent-ish humans, we know that that's not the case. But you'll be sitting on the airplane, you'll be agitated, and you'll think, God, surely there's something you can do. But no wonder, like this really, when this escalation of crying happened, I thought to myself, oh my God, this is so real life. If you're caught somewhere, and it wasn't stopping with Tanisha unless you addressed the right issue with her.
Yeah.
So that's like a normal baby. And that was very confronting, especially because we were so hyper aware of our neighbours. We didn't want them reporting us to, child protective services that there was a child being murdered or something. So, and then I did one outing to the cafe, and that I timed that to perfection. Like we addressed all her issues, then I ran out, got the coffee, and came back with her. So I didn't want her going off in the shop.
See, that's the other thing. I'd be so scared of that judgment and my baby misbehaving and crying and ruining people's time that I would probably not go out anywhere. I'd become a hermit and just sit inside because I'm petrified of that happening. But then you can understand how people get postnatal depression, because if that's what they're doing and they're just sitting at home, or just like not being able to deal with a crying baby. Because let me tell you, when it doesn't shut up for like even just 10 minutes, you just want to bash your head through a wall, because it's so unbearable.
Relentless. But I think postnatal depression, isn't that something you have, like a hormonal thing?
I think it is, but I think there's things that obviously make it worse. Like you just can't cope. You can't cope with everything that's happening. And I can totally understand that.
I wonder mums, well, I don't know if all mums do this, but I can totally understand if they're just rocking in a corner crying.
Totally.
Because of everything.
And like we felt like doing that after 2 days, knowing that we were giving it back and we were doing it together. From a perspective of potentially doing it on your own, has that sort of changed your opinion on that at all? Like it would be hard.
I just think overall, whether I do it alone or with someone else, that would
hard.
Completely put me off. Because as you said, there was just no benefits. And it was so restrictive, and I was too scared to go out with it. But also another thing it showed me, when you're trying to organise catch-ups with friends and they're like, oh, I can only go at this time, or that's my child's sleep time, or she'll be grumpy, then I want, I used to be like, just put it in a bloody pram and meet me.
And put the dummy in its mouth.
God. I mean, I just had to time everything to perfection going to get a coffee. I'm like, now I can see why there's little windows you have to work with. God, it's so easy to judge in life, isn't it?
And even just, because when we picked Tanisha up, she came full throttle with a carrier, a bottle, nappy, like spare nappies, spare clothes, etc. And that is only for a doll. So once again, the stuff that you would have to pack, even just to go out and get a coffee, would be like, is it worth it?
Oh my God.
Is it worth it?
And imagine if you had a chundering baby where you have to change their clothes every 2 seconds.
And, you know, taking the pram out and not being able to open doors and then having to put it in the car and getting it out of the car.
I actually think this was a good try because that was an element that we hadn't explored very much, or hadn't really had the chance to empathise with that whole restrictiveness and that not being able to soothe it, or I don't know, it just really showed how in control this baby is of your life. But I also think we need to be very aware, as everyone was telling us, it's not like a real baby in a lot of aspects, but in some aspects. But so you just don't have that connection. So I think we need to remind ourselves, even if you have a devil baby like these simulators, you still have that love and connection and care for them, which I think probably keeps you on track a little bit.
But in a sense, don't you reckon that is a shame? As much as yes, it serves a purpose, at the same time, if people are literally making the decision not to have kids based on looking after these babies, but they're not like the real thing.
I wish I was exaggerating, but we received a couple of messages from people saying they had these simulator babies in year 11 and that turned them off having kids for life.
But that is a shame, given
shame.
It's not like the real thing 100%. I reckon I'd say 25% it's like the real thing in terms of it really crying, really having the body
because I
movements.
Think at the end of the day, the motivation and the connection of a real child that you've birthed and love outdoes all that horrificness.
And the joyous moments come from those little things of, seeing them create this personality, having little laughs, having their first smile, eating their first food, having their first steps. You're not getting that with a robot doll.
I just honestly don't think there's ever going to be a challenge because that is really going to get us ready. Or because even if we look after real kids, they're not our kids.
So you don't have that connection.
So they'll probably be more annoying than anything. Yeah. Yes, we'll get that. Oh, they're cute if they're cute or if they give us moments of joy. But they're not ours. I just really don't think there's anything else that can show us what it's like to have a child.
Love you, Tanisha, but we just couldn't connect with you.
You ain't us.
And you ain't it.
And we were really happy to return you.
Yeah.
But thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.